Hey everyone, welcome back to another Board Game Co. paid preview. I'm Devin, and this is Hacktivity from Acolyte Games. This is a cooperative campaign game, and in front of you I've got a mock setup for a two-player game. As I mentioned, this is a campaign game. It also plays cooperatively. We are all new recruits or new initiates into a clandestine agency that is dealing with the kind of technologically advanced and cybernetic space that we all live in. There are viruses, there are other digital threats that pose a danger to us and to others, and it's our job to decommission them, to deactivate them and deconstruct them to where they're not a problem anymore. It is a difficult efficiency puzzle that comes into play in a progressively more complex fashion. So you will start off at a foundational level, kind of getting the hang of things and understanding how the cooperation takes place between the characters in terms of the amount of cards that you might want to play and how to negotiate the best path forward in terms of completing the requirements of each scenario. And then if you subsequently succeed, moving on to the next scenario and discovering how the game evolves from there. There is a process in which you will be playing both your character cards and the anomaly cards, because beyond the specific requirements of each scenario, you're also going to have the need to make it through your character deck and the anomaly deck, ending with the main threat being dealt with and then also the anomaly deck run through successfully to where there are no more anomalies and problems that are permeating in the digital space. As I mentioned, I have a mock two-player setup here, so I have Blast, who is going third, and then Artemis, who is going fourth. If you're in a two-player game, you just determine who is going first by who has the lowest number. So Artemis at 4 would be going last. We would start off with Blast. In a game like this, let me tell you what the setup is that you're looking at. Over here, you have got your alert screen. This dictates the pace at which you are your presence is being felt in cybernetic space, and more threats are going to be brought into the existing pile of danger in the anomaly deck. So as this scales up, you're going to have these threats brought in. And then you have your antivirus screen here. This is the part of the main board where you'll deal primarily with the anomalies that you're choosing not to have self-destruct and damage you in an effort to get rid of them quickly, but to kind of isolate them and make them to where they aren't as much of a threat to you right away, but that they do take up the spots. And so when this is full and you're not dealing with it appropriately, the only way to get through anomalies is to self-destruct them, which kind of results in an immediate painful effect that you have to deal with and reconcile with as a team. So when you isolate the anomalies here, then you're able to de-escalate the data blocks that they have, which kind of is representative, it's their health. And so whenever you remove all of the data blocks that comprise a anomaly, they're removed from the game, and usually in a safer, less intrusive fashion than if you try to just deconstruct them or self-destruct them and get them out of your hand entirely. Now the question might be, why do you have anomalies in your hand at all? Well, because at the beginning of every turn, players have to draw 3 cards. You could draw 3 cards from your deck, and Artemis could take 3 right here. But you have a finite amount of cards in your hand, and also when you play them, they're permanently gone. Whether you play the top effect or whether you play the bottom effect, these cards are not coming back. And so you kind of actually want to intersperse your hands of the amount of cards that you draw, usually 3, not usually, always 3. But when you draw them, you sometimes want to take cards from your hand, and sometimes you want to take anomalies. Maybe it's because there's open places on the antivirus screen that you want to place them down and isolate them on, or maybe it's because you want to just straight up get rid of them and you want to self-destruct them, and you will suffer whatever the consequences are when doing so. Now, when you place them up here, these anomalies will dictate what the health of it is in terms of the size of the data blocks, and then also if there's any benefit for good or for bad that will happen whenever you play the card via the top action. As you can see, you have a top action and a bottom action, and that's the same for the character cards as well, a top discard and a bottom discard. The top discard is usually only a beneficial effect, and the bottom discard is typically a stronger action, but does have some negative effect, as this is going to push the alert up 2 spaces. So you're drawing 3 cards. Every player is going to draw 3 cards, and you have to end the round of play by playing all of your cards. Now, on your turn within a round, you can play 1 card or you can play 2 cards. You can't play 3 and you can't play 0. You have to play either 1 or 2. So you can slow play it, or you can burn through most of your hand in one go. It kind of depends on the strategy that you want to go along with, and also the coordination and the communication that you do with your team. And that's important because each of the players has a different function. Blast and Artemis are a little bit more straightforward. Blast has the ability to copy the top or down actions of any of the character cards in play and in the discard pile that is visible, even if it's another teammate. And Artemis is kind of just your catch-all. They're very good at doing what you need to do. They don't have the complexity or the nuance of some of the other characters. Cyberlink is very focused on connecting threads between the anomalies to where when you deactivate one, you're actually able to reduce the data blocks of other connected anomalies. And so you get this cascading chain effect of removing threats from the field, which is good. So Cyberlink is kind of all about creating a level of interwoven aid for whatever you're doing. It's going to be affecting other anomalies as well, which can scale up the speed at which you're moving through the anomaly deck, which is good. And then Dr. Power here has a special, unique interface that is also there. And Dr. Power is the most complex as well, based off of the 3 stars that are there, 2 stars for Cyberlink, and then 1 for Blast and Artemis. They're the easiest to get on the ground floor and understand how to play. So as I mentioned, you have the alert screen, which dictates the speed at which other threats might come into play. You have the antivirus screen, which is where you isolate your anomalies. And then over here you have your critical screen, which dictates whatever the main threat is in the game. So in this first scenario, you have the strange bug. This is kind of your initiation or your first field mission in this agency that you're working for. And so as initiates, as new recruits, you're trying to kind of get grapple with the scenario, but also understand the ins and outs of how the agency works and how you're supposed to work as a field agent. And so you deal with this strange bug. The requirement to finish this scenario is to make it through your character deck and the anomaly deck, fully removing or isolating all anomalies by the end of the game. If there are some anomalies that are in the antivirus screen at the end of the game and they're not dealt with, but as long as the deck's empty, that meets the requirements. You don't have to fully kill them, you just have to isolate or fully kill all of them in terms of cumulatively. So if all of the antiviruses are either here or in combination here and here, you're good, you've made it through the deck. And then lastly, the strange bug, the main thing has to be somewhere in this white bar section from 0 or below that in terms of its threat and health presence as well. So if you reduce the efficacy and reduce the presence of the strange bug all the way down, you make it through the anomaly deck successfully, and you also have made it through and completed your character deck, then you meet the requirements for that particular scenario, though every subsequent scenario, of which there are 6 in this box that I have, that will enable you to discover new threats and get new abilities. So you'll unlock these cards, and these cards will dictate whether the anomaly deck, whether your main critical screen threat, and whether any other aspects of the game are going to be added on. Obviously it says stop, this is a campaign game. You don't want to advance or move into new material until you're ready for it. And each scenario might give you a lot of different cards based off of what it's offering and what it's adding on to the gameplay. And that's Hacktivity. It's a cooperative campaign game. You're working through it. You've got your character cards, your anomaly cards, in whatever combination you're drawing them. Then you're trying to play through them. You are allowed to communicate with your teammates, and you want to do so. You want to coordinate as effectively as possible between the cards that you get and how you're trying to confront the puzzle in front of you, the efficiency of how you move through your cards, and also deal with the anomalies, whether you want to activate them into the antivirus screen, isolating them so that you can remove them more safely, or if you want to just nuke them and get rid of them and self-destruct them, even if it might cause you some damage. You have other things that are at play here. You have kind of the firewall that's protecting you. Look at that as your health. Anytime on any part of the board, if you see this skull marker anywhere, if you ever reach that on the alert screen with your main threat in the critical presence, with the firewall that's protecting you, if at any point you reach that with characters or with your main board, you lose the scenario. You lose. You're done. You need to make sure that you manage your health, the alert, and the knowledge of your presence in cybernet space, and then everything else. It all has to be balanced, which is why you can't just lopsidedly take your cards and not worry about the anomaly deck, because then you might run out of your cards and have a whole slew of cards that are bad that you have to take, because you have to take your cards every single turn. So it is a juggling enterprise. You're definitely working to stay above the kind of like rising tide of problems that are present whenever you're dealing with the anomalies in your main threat. You adjust the difficulty and the state of the game based off of player count. If you're introducing a third or a fourth player, you're going to be introducing more anomalies and more threats that are present and able to deal with stuff. You will also have more space in the antivirus section, and you'll remove this blocked spark, so you'll have more that you can deal with here. And then you're always going to be tracking the data block size of the anomalies as you go in, and making sure you try to suppress or keep down the health and the threat of whatever is on the critical screen. This is Hacktivity, and as I mentioned, it's from Acolyte Games. This is a cooperative campaign game. If you guys have any more questions, let us know down below. We'll have the required links for you and whatever disclaimers that we are required to share with you so that you can be the best informed about the game. And I hope you have a good one. I'll see you guys next time for another Board Game Co. paid preview. Bye.